There's not one guy, one person in the history of this program that's bigger than the program.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
Welcome, and thank you for checking in to episode 65 of the Program Guys podcast. We are missing Mason Prince and Ryan Tyson this week, so it's just three guys, one pod. Can't wait to give it to you. Joined with me today, joined by Patrick and Matt. It's me, Mark Hall. I can't do this, guys. I need Mason in my life. Pat, Matt, how we doing?
Good. I agree. We do need Mason. That's why I texted us like 3 hours ago and said, we're going to bring the heat. We're going to bring the fire today. It's going to be a fun podcast. Hopefully. I mean, I'm going to miss them, but it's going to be fun. We've got some good stuff.
Yeah. When was the last time we had just three dudes being dudes instead of five? Come on. We're getting after it today. We got some good stuff.
I don't know. It had to be like a Stars game. we were planning on a four-person pod, and then Matt has a Stars game.
Usually how it happens.
We had Mason's wedding this past weekend, boys. Any fun times that you want to talk about during the weekend with the guys?
I mean, the biggest takeaway of the wedding was when he was lifted up by three of his friends during Creed. I think that was just iconic. I'd never seen it before.
You're missing maybe the best part is that Katie was also lifted.
You're right.
Simultaneously. Both Christ-like figures in their own way being lifted into the air for this beautiful meeting of love.
And for anyone who doesn't know how much Mason does CrossFit and how like ripped he is, he did take his shirt off in the middle of the dance floor at one point.
That's right. That's right.
Probably the highlight. That was the highlight. Just the confidence.
It's always like his shirt always ends up off. Like a certain amount of alcohol gets into him and like a little bit of sweat and the shirt's gone every time. Matt, let's talk about Mason without a shirt. You go.
That's right. I will say congratulations again to Mason and Katie. It was a beautiful wedding at a beautiful venue. Everyone was looking sharp, both on the groomsmen and the bridesmaid side, especially with some of the guys up there. Overall, just a fantastic weekend, coming to the rehearsal dinner, going to the big wedding on Friday. I mean, you couldn't ask for more for everyone to be together, especially guys we haven't seen in a while. So I know, again, they are on currently their honeymoon. Wish them all the best and safe travels. But what an extraordinary weekend we had with Mason and everyone else. So,
first of the guys. The first of the guys to take the plunge. First off this week, we want to congratulate our March Madness winner. Pat, do you want to take this thing off? Do you want to?
Yeah, for sure. Dandy Andy, our one of our listeners. No, he tied you.
I won. I won by 10.
No, you didn't. You guys were tied for second.
Go check it. It's 640 to 630.
Guys,
you go check it, Gan. You didn't win. You tied with Dandy Andy. Anyways, for those who don't know Dandy Andy, he's one of our Tennessee listeners, and he won a pair of Hype shoes because we're doing giveaways, and Hype Shoe is our sponsor for the March Madness bracket. He's getting a cool pair of Hype shoes. And yeah, congrats to Dandy Andy.
Guys, if you don't know Hype shoes yet, go get you a pair of Hype shoes. Just Google them. They're little slides. They're great. We all have some OU ones. They're like, what are they? Less than $35 a pair.
They're about $35 right now. Yep.
They're always on sale. Go get you a pair. They were great with us all throughout this process. They've been great with us before. Go get yourself a pair. Do we want to talk a little OU football?
No, before
that's
that,
all I'm here for.
I want to touch on March Madness. We haven't touched on it enough. Did you guys?
Yeah, we were going to do that later.
We were going to do that later. Okay, no, I like this better.
Go ahead, yeah.
Let's get over with.
Matt, get us through March Madness because I didn't watch enough, and so when we got down to the end, I watched UConn destroy Miami, and then I was like, oh, okay, cool, it's over. Like I know UConn's going to win it all. Past that, I don't think it was all that great of a tournament.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I think I saw a tweet that really stuck out to me. It was like someone said maybe it was one of the Barstool guys, I can't remember, but he said the beginning of March Madness, the longer it goes on, the worse it gets. It's almost like a bachelor party where all the energy is hyped up on like the first or second day, but by the end of it, you just want to be home, curled up in bed, right? So that's exactly how I felt. Like all the good upsets, all the good matchups, but then we get to the final like 2 or 3 games left, and they're pretty much just blowouts by UConn. The game wasn't even close the other night either in the national championship game. UConn was clearly the best team there. So again, some good matchups early on in the bracket, but as we got closer and closer to the end, just wasn't as exciting.
Yeah, I saw. I'm gonna steal from some tweet I saw at some point too. Someone said like everyone loves the Cinderella story until you get to the Elite Eight and realize we don't have anyone that we know here. Like there wasn't a Zion Williamson to just throw your weight behind this year and be like, man, look at that guy. I know I'm going to watch him for years to come. You really just had to love college basketball to continue getting into these games that weren't that great down the stretch.
Yeah, I think it sucks. Like I think I lost a lot of respect for men's basketball in general. How can you be a top team with top players and lose and get upset? It just doesn't comprehend in my mind. It just doesn't happen in sports that I like watch, like soccer. And in football too, it doesn't really happen that much. A bad team's typically going to get blown out. You can't tell me that schools that have spent millions on recruiting, getting the best players around the country, and then they come in and they lose in the first couple of rounds. It's just like unacceptable to me. And I don't understand why that happens. And to that point, that's why I liked watching the women's tournament more this year. And I did watch more of the women's tournament this year than the men's tournament. And it was a fun time to watch. Like the quality of the teams that were good beat the bad quality teams. And it was just a great viewership. It was fun to watch.
So let's just, one of the fun things that we're doing today, listeners, team, program, is we all have a hot take. It's one of the fun little gimmicks we're doing because it's just the three of us. Here's my hot take. Women's college basketball is way more entertaining than men's college basketball right now.
100%.
The way the women's game is played, they're so much more fluid with their movement and with their willingness to just get up into their shot that it looks just like they're playing ball in a way that watching these college guys play, it's like get the ball at the top of the key, triple, pass out to you, three that won't go in. And then we're just running down the court, do the same thing.
Right.
The college guys try to play like NBA players without nearly the talent of NBA players. The college women are playing to optimize their talents.
I agree. It's funny. My fiance's father watches a lot of women's Tennessee basketball. And at one point, the conversation arose and he was like, I like watching the women's more because it's just a bit more fundamental and technical. And you can see that more clearly over the men's basketball team. I found that very interesting. And when I started watching a lot this season, I saw that as well.
Yeah, I also think the quality of players, you got to think college basketball, at least on the men's side, a lot of people going to the G League, going to the NBA draft early on. So I think for the women's side, people stick around a lot longer. They play 3 or 4 years. So, Patrick, when it comes to like execution and having talent, I mean, you're having juniors, seniors on the women's side, and that's just not happening on the men's. I think Kansas had like 3 freshmen in their starting lineup, and that's just because the good quality players that people get recruited for 1 year, they end up going pro or getting some kind of deal in the G League. So the quality is just not as there as it used to be.
Yeah, and what's going to be interesting with these like women superstars coming up, like Caitlin Clark, her NIL deal, I assume is going to be huge next year in the next 2 years, probably more than she'll probably make more in college than she'll be making in the WNBA. I would not be surprised if that happens.
It's kind of like the North Carolina guy. He decided to come back for an extra year at North Carolina because he's going to make more in his NIL deal than possibly going to the European League or whatever. So it's a good alternative for guys to come back, and maybe more guys will stick around longer.
Yeah, the interesting thing is the WNBA won't let women join the league until they've completed their 4 years. So Caitlin Clark couldn't go to the WNBA even if she wanted to. I'll be interested to see, because she's not like that LSU gymnast who's just posting
Livy Dunn.
Yeah, who's just posting thirst traps all day.
Yeah.
What the NIL game is like there for her. I hope that someone like Nike comes through or Gatorade comes through, and you can very easily envision a Nike campaign, a commercial campaign that runs during next year's Final Four or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's hard because he's still playing. You don't want to.
I mean, I think
I
the
don't know
men
if
are
I want to
doing it.
show up on the. Are they?
Yeah, I think men are sitting like as AT&T commercial maybe talking about
Okay, cool.
Samsung
Then
phones.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Then absolutely. Something like that. You could easily see something like that working and running well during that time. Hopefully we see it because I think that would work pretty well.
For sure.
We shall see, but I think it's time to now talk about some OU football news and dive right into what's going on. I know spring ball is still going on. This is the first week, correct? So they're just finishing up their time there. So got some news to report. Anyone come with any topics they would like to talk about? Individual players, position groups, anything stuck out to you guys from the first week of spring practice? What do you guys think?
Mark?
Oh, me? You want me to go?
Sure.
Yeah, man. It's something that we talk about or we kind of talk around, but it really stuck out to me just sort of the level up that Oklahoma has undergone and how the expectations from the coaching staff on down have just risen since last season. There's a now kind of popular quote out of Miguel Chavis where he says, "You want to go be in the Cheez-It Bowl or the playoff?"
Yeah.
To his players while they're working out.
Yep.
Jason McCullough is interviewed and says these guys walk around like they're undefeated. And obviously, I think that was misconstrued. I think, I agreed. But I think the intention there was these guys walk around like a program that means to be undefeated, that intends to be undefeated. That is the goal. There is no we're not shooting to win the Big 12. We're shooting past that. And with those expectations are going to come guys that will rise to those expectations and guys that will fall. But you can see that they're expecting much more now. You talk about the guys on the defense, and the players are even saying, yeah, now that I know what I'm doing, we're that much better. Like, I'm not learning it, I'm reviewing it. I think that's one of the linebackers said that. I think it was Jaron. You can clearly see that expectations have risen, and they're going to take advantage of this last year in the Big 12 to kind of solidify what they're doing on at least the defensive side of the ball. And on the offense, I have some other ideas and questions, but that's a different thing. The expectations are high, and that's exactly where they should be. When you guys see me come with a 10 or 11 win prediction here and whenever we decide to do it, don't be surprised because that's what the coaches are expecting too. Matt, what do you think?
I mean, I agree. I think the leap from year one to year two is exponential, at least what Sooners fans can expect. So year two in the BV system, year two in the Jeff Lebby system, all the position groups coming together. And now BV has the guys that he wants, right, in his recruiting class. So these guys have come on, got some good transfers. You mentioned Deshaun McCullough, possibly in that same interview, playing around with the cheetah position. I mean, with a freak of an athlete like him, if he actually, because again, at Indiana, he just played edge most of the time, getting after the quarterback. If you can have a guy that can get up and down the field and play the safety and play down, I mean, he's going to be an absolute menace. But again, the expectation has significantly risen over this past offseason. And if OU doesn't win 10 plus wins this season, that would be almost a letdown, right? We got to get back to the OU standard of getting back to Big 12 championships, to getting back to the playoffs, winning those big games against the Texas, the OSUs of the world before we enter the SEC. So I feel like the energy, the vibe around this team, 129, is significantly higher because there is a significantly higher expectation. We need 10 plus wins this season, or people are going to question a lot of the BV hire, I think.
Well, yeah, the coaches are just like making me feel like the expectations need to be high. And I want to pinpoint something that Emmett Jones said. And at first, I also misconstrued this quote, and I didn't like it at all. But he said, "We've got to bring us some more trophies." And he said more around that. But when he said we need to bring us some more trophies, I said, hold on, guy. You're the new kid on the block. We had 6 of the last 8 Big 12 championships. A lot of schools, all schools would be very fortunate to have 6 of their 8 last conference championships. Kind of check yourself. But then I went through the whole article and like watched it and all the things. And he definitely came out of like a place of, hey, I'm here now. And it's an expectation on myself. My head's down. I'm working hard. I'm going to help us get more trophies. I'm super excited for him. Like a couple things about him and just the wide receiver core in general from his past is he's had at least one receiver with 800 yards in all of his 7 years of coaching, and he has had 4 1,000-yard receivers in his career. Will be interesting this year because I feel like we're going to spread it out. Maybe Jalil gets 800,000 yards, not sure. Lebby also said our best years have been when we've had a guy over 1,000 yards. I just don't necessarily see that happen. But just to my point about Emmett, expectations for him are very high. He seems like he's the perfect guy for the job. And I'm going to be the first one to call out if we're missing a route, dropping a ball, things like that, because the way he's talking right now is he's going to whip these guys into shape.
Oh, that is my hot take alert, Patrick. You nailed it on the head.
Oh, no.
Here's my hot take. I might have misunderstood the assignment a little bit. I thought it was more of an OU hot take, but here's my hot take regardless. I actually think there will be a wide receiver outside Jalil Farouk who will take over the number 1 spot and be the best wide receiver on the team. I think that will either be Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson, Brown. One of those guys is going to emerge, and I think they're going to be the top guy. I think Jalil, obviously, clear-cut the number 1 guy right now, but someone out of that group has to come out and help him out, right? We had Marvin Mims last year. That helped Jalil a lot. Who is going to be the guy? I think someone's going to emerge as the number 1, and it's not going to be Jalil Farouk. So that is my hot take.
No, I love the hot take. And I think it's possible, especially because teams are looking at Oklahoma wide receiver group right now, and they're saying, hey, Jalil's their guy. Let's make sure to cover him. It's up to the other guys to step up, and I think they can do it.
Yes. All right. Yes. Let's slow down. Let's talk this out. It's a good idea. It's a fun idea, right? We're talking about between the 3 guys that Matt said, Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson,
or Petaway.
Brown.
Throw him in there as well.
Jaquez Petaway. Fine.
Yep.
Fine. We're talking about a guy, 4 guys with a combined 1 carry for 5 yards and 1 reception for 12 yards in their college football careers.
That's right.
I think
that's right.
Like, absolutely they are. I think that one of those 3 guys is for sure going to step up and command a role. Now that Marvin's kind of gone, you can sort of build the receiving core how you want to. And what he's going to want to do is put one of those gigantic guys on the edge and let Jalil sort of cook either on the other side or in the slot, or Drake Stoops in the slot, whatever you want to do, and throw the ball up to him. That's what A.J. Brown did. That's what DK Metcalf did when Lebby was at Ole Miss. They're not going to be the number 1 receiver, though. Jalil Farouk he might not be like your 1A, but he's your 1B, I think. And you go from there building around him.
Well, Mark, that's why it's a hot take, baby.
It is a hot take, baby. I like it.
That's right. That's right.
And I know there's going to be someone in the comments getting mad at us about not talking about Gavin Freeman. But as we've discussed, if Gavin's our go-to guy, our receiving core is not good enough. We love Gavin Freeman. Give me all the packages for Gavin Freeman.
Yep.
He's going to be awesome. I want him to touch the ball 5-6 times a game. If we can do some tricky stuff with him, that'd be awesome to see. But yeah, we need a 1,000-yard guy if we're going to be successful and have an explosive offense.
If 5'8" Gavin Freeman's your wide receiver 1, like you just it's like you said, gadgety guy. That's what you need out of him.
Yep.
Well, speaking of 1,000 yards, we also need a 1,000-yard rusher. And some news coming out of camp from pictures we've seen. Javonte Barnes in a boot. What do you guys think about that? That's a huge, possibly a huge loss. From what I've seen, I know BV's apparently going to address it in the next media session or two about the extent of his injury. But that's a pretty big blow to a running back group that doesn't have a lot of experience. What do you guys think?
Yeah. And I mean, I haven't seen any information. I'm trying to check all the Twitter comments, and there's nothing on Javonte Barnes right now. And I mean, he's in pads and standing with the group. So I mean, that makes me a little more optimistic. It's only a couple months thing, but yeah, that's scary, man.
Yeah, it sucks that he's hurt. It sucks that he's going to be missing the time. I think if you want to find sort of a silver lining in this, it's that we've talked over and over about the need for someone to step up in the running back room, and now more guys get a shot at, or a bite at the apple, I guess is a good way to say it, because we know what Javonte Barnes is. He was able to establish a role last season as a pseudo lead back towards the end. I think we're fine on Javonte Barnes. Let's see what Caleb Hicks can do. Let's see what kind of an athlete Dalen Smothers is back there, and showcase those guys in the spring game. That look, our guy Tawi Walker. I love Tawi. Hey, maybe Marcus Major isn't your senior big guy that takes over. Maybe it's Tawi freaking Walker, man.
Well, you putting some stock into Tawi Walker?
Well, yeah, we put stock.
What kind of price are you giving me?
Well, Mark, you forgot someone really critical back there, and that leads me to my hot take here, and I'm going to go ahead and say it.
You did it.
I think Javonte Barnes and Sawchuk could have a similar legacy as Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon. You heard me right. I know those two are great players, and I know they're awesome. Something I did, because I was just thinking about it. Obviously, everyone was drooling after Barnes and Sawchuk had their incredible bowl game against Florida State. I wanted to look at a bowl game that I felt was like a similar-esque win that OU needed, or a similar-esque game. And hint, hint, I'm wearing it right now. OU against Auburn, where Joe Mixon and Perine played next to each other. And just comparing, Barnes and Sawchuk combined for 208 yards in that game against Florida State. Mixon and Perine combined for 177 yards. So, I mean, they had an incredible game, but here's why I think they could leave a similar legacy. It's because we have the coaches to win a national championship. And the running backs who are going to be remembered are the running backs that are going to win us a national championship. And I think Sawchuk and Barnes could be in that group when they're seniors easily. If PV gets his guys, he's got his defense, and we're in those big games, we're going to remember Sawchuk and Barnes if they're the ones running and we have those awesome packages for them. They're scoring touchdowns in the national championship game. You better bet your ass we're remembering them.
If those two guys can run the way that they did in that game, in every game, I'm with you. Because Gavin Sawchuk looks like Eric Gray to me. He's like faster, but he's just running through arm tackles every single time. And Javonte Barnes is DeMarco Murray too, man. He is big and he runs high, but it doesn't matter because he's just stronger than you. They're the most sure things in the running back room right now, I think. You're also speaking to a devout Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon lover. And
hey, me too.
That's it's hard to get there. It's hard to get there. When one of them pulls a Joe Mixon against Texas Tech or sets the single game rushing record in the rain, I can maybe get there.
Those are the two things with Perine against, was it Kansas at home?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I mean, Perine's breakout game in West Virginia, I'll just never forget it. Never forget it.
Never. They were calling him like Perine. Samaje Perine.
They've got Perine with over 200 yards now. But yeah, I mean, Sawchuk and Barnes could win a natty. We'll see.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that three position groups I'm probably most worried about this year, coming into this year, is on the offensive side. The offensive line, the running back, and the wide receiver core.
Give me the quarterbacks,
I'm okay with DG. I think he's going to be fine. He's going to improve in year 2 with Jeff Levy's system, and I'm just more worried about the skill position players in the offensive line.
You
They
already
make
knew
a
the system.
He already
You
knew the
already
system.
knew the system. It's why we got him.
Yeah, but that was what 2 years removed, so I'm not going to put that all on DG. There's a lot of learn curve, and a lot of things that Jeff Levy can do a lot better, especially in his
100%
situational play
agree.
calling.
Yep.
Yeah.
But three
I've said
position
that a
groups a
couple
little bit
times,
up in
and
the
it's
air.
all we do now.
Yeah, we'll get there, but still a lot to figure out. A lot of uncertainty. I feel like at least on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, I feel a lot better with BB getting his guys and a lot of the transfers, but we'll have to see how everything plays out.
Isn't that weird too? Because I'm in the same boat where I feel better about what we have building on the defense than I do on the offense. My concern does include that quarterback position, though. If the offense sputters 3 or 4 games into the season, I promise you we're going to see Jackson Arnold. I promise you. That's just too long to not show dominance. And we should be able to be dominant.
Right. Yeah, and again, we are DG fans on this podcast, but as we've talked about, the ceiling raising that we need in late in the game or sometimes just doesn't happen. So I'd agree, Mark.
The ability to see where the guy is on a 3rd and 12 when the play's supposed to go to the sideline. Like, he just can't see it. And he's not fast enough to get around and out of the pocket to see it. How many times did he just miss short throws? How many times did he miss the deep throws he's supposed to hit? Sorry, Pat.
No, you're good. If anyone thinks Bevel is going to be number 2, they're dead wrong. Every time there's a video of Bevel in practice, he's missing the throw or throwing it behind. I mean, gosh, it's so bad.
They want to make sure that either Bevel or Booty stay just in case.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going on with him still getting those second team reps.
It's got to be. But just back to the defense one more time. I know Deshaun McCullough got to speak with the press this week, and it really does seem like a complicated defense after listening to some of these player interviews that like they are not able to pick it up quickly. And we saw that so much last year. And I really hope that with the guys that we're bringing back and help teach the new guys, but just seems too complicated right now. And I think it's just a trust the process thing. Could take another year or 2 years before we really have the guys who understand BV's defense and can execute on it, because even the senior like Deshaun coming in from Illinois is just like, yeah, the Cheetah's tough.
Deshaun's a sophomore.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Right. So I was listening to the unofficial 40 and I want to credit the quote that I'm getting from here. George Stoya now works for them. He used to be a reporter for the Denver Broncos, and Delarian Turner-Yell plays for the Broncos, right? And he said he was speaking with Delarian about the shift from Grinch's defense to Venable's defense. And Delarian was like, man, we were doing the simplest stuff in the Grinch defense. We were just going out there and doing the easiest things. It's going to take these guys a year or two, whenever they start, to get the whole defense down. I think we're going to see players that were here last year massively improve their, if not like their just ability to play football, their ability to go, right? Danny Stutzman not stuttering for a step before making a play, that kind of thing. I think you're going to see much more decisive play out of some of these guys and a much faster development out of the freshmen and the new players, because they're now surrounded by people who have been in the system for a year. And this is the year where I think we should expect pretty significant growth, even if we're not looking at top 15 defense kind of thing.
Agreed.
For sure. Well, I know Brent Venables runs a very complex NFL style of teams. So speaking of the NFL, let's talk about the OU Pro Day. Got a lot of guys, a lot of Sooners that came down. Anything that you guys took from the OU Pro Day that stuck out to you guys?
Yeah, so there's like 4 guys that I think we should really discuss, right? Eric Gray, we can look at his results. The big one The only one that I think really was important for him was his 40-yard dash. Runs a 4.63 at the pro day after not running at the combine. What did you guys think about that?
I mean, that's huge for his stock. I mean, for a running back that pretty much, did lead the way last year. I don't know what the difference between running at the pro day, running at the combine is. I mean, I'm sure there is some kind of science or some kind of psychology to it, but that's a pretty dang good 40 time. And
Times are
especially
almost always better for some reason.
for whatever reason it may be.
Yeah.
But the great thing about Eric Gray that works for him is he is a dual threat guy. And that's what the NFL running backs have to be. You have to be able to pass block first and foremost. You got to be able to obviously run between the tackles. But the biggest thing is you've got to be able to catch the football out of the backfield and make plays. And I think having that speed works to his advantage. That's a good 40 time. That should only increase his stock. And I'm not sure where he's projected right now, but I'm sure teams will be taking a look at that after his pro day.
Pat?
Happy for him. I said it in the past. I think it's going to take some time for him to find his groove in the NFL, but I hope he finds it.
I think he needed to break 4.6 I mean, he's still going to get drafted, right? It's not like Eric Gray is not going to get drafted, but I think it's likely he's fifth round pick.
So I thought that was
really
too
reasonable.
slow too, but Gann was all optimistic, so I changed my answer.
Yeah, no, I'm coming into this saying I think it's a little too slow. I expected him to be a little more explosive than that, just given, it's funny. He's very quick and good with, make a step and then run upfield, right? He was very good at that, and he'd run through arm tackles. I guess I don't really remember any plays where Eric ran off for 80 yards on this one run. And I'm sure that they existed. I'm sure that I'm just missing it, right? But maybe he's just not as fast as I thought he was.
Yeah.
I don't think he has to be. I mean, think about Ramondre Stevenson and how well he's played with the Patriots. I think it will fit. It's got to be a particular
has 30
system.
more pounds. That's
true.
player.
But just saying, similar comparisons. I mean, Stevenson's not the fastest guy, but he's made it work in the Patriot system and obviously had a really good year. So it definitely can work for Eric Gray, but he's got to find a particular team to work with. And yeah, I mean, he'd probably end up being a fifth, sixth round pick, but
third down back kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next one I want to talk about is Marvin Mims. Sticking with his 4.38, didn't do anything at the pro day, probably just met with some teams. He's probably going to be like a second, third round pick, guys.
He should be.
That 4.38 saved his ass.
Yeah, that's elite. That's elite speed.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest concern from him is really just his height, right? That's something that people have always talked about. I'm not sure what he came in during the pro day or the combine, but his height will always be the issue for him and where people think about drafting him.
I think any team that gets Marvin Mims is just, you're getting a ready-made guy who can run any route in the tree, knows how to make plays after he gets the ball.
They're getting him on discount. They're getting him on discount for sure.
That's a great way to put it. He's not your wide receiver 1 in the NFL, but he can be your wide receiver 3, and oh my God, that's a superstar for you.
Mark, you got an NFL comparison. What do you think Marvin Mims, like similar skills, abilities? Or someone that sticks out to you that
Gann's over here like Randall Cobb?
No, well, the speed is like,
just kidding.
The speed is something else. Man, the one that came to mind, I'm a Falcons fan, Harry Douglas from back in the early 2010s with the Falcons. Just, it would run any route you needed him to and caught the ball. And I think Marvin Mims is a 10 times better guy after the catch than that, but similar ability to get open against man or zone coverage, similar ability to find that hole and make the play against larger defenders even. Put me on the spot, man. I didn't have that.
Hey, always putting you on the spot. We have to be spicy here. Who were the other two guys you wanted?
Last two for me, the tackles, Anton and Wanye. I mean, that's a first round pick and a second or third round pick right there. Bill Bedenbaugh just still doing his thing. And I don't think either of them work out. Nope, they both stuck on their combine stuff. So
I think I saw Anton rep 20 reps on the bar.
Was I wrong?
I think that's the only thing I saw
Yeah.
from OU Pro Day. Not sure if he did anything else, but I think he did 24 reps of whatever the weight is. But pretty impressive
for him.
Definitely a first round, projected first round. I think the only guy on the OU roster that can push for that.
Teams in the draft that either draft great players or valuable positions, and Anton's the most valuable position outside of quarterback.
I mean, I just think Bill Beanbo is churning them out. I mean, you think of the guys that's got some of the biggest contracts in the league: Lane Johnson, Trent Williams, Ben Powers getting a really good deal coming out from the Ravens and moving on to the Broncos, right?
Orlando Brown.
Yeah, Orlando
highest
Brown.
signing bonus in offensive line history.
Yeah, Bill Beanbo knows how to find these guys and get them prepared for the draft because these guys are getting paid big money.
Yeah, my only last points here. Interesting, Gabe Burkett came back. Hopefully he gets a job somewhere. And then if you compare Braden Willis's performance to his counterpart's performance, which is Daniel Parker, Braden looks like he's set for success in the NFL.
I texted y'all this, and I got a whole thing on this. Why is Braden Willis not running a 40? Can y'all explain that to me?
It's weird. Is he super slow? That's the only
issue, I would think.
The crazy, we talked all season and before last season about, Braden's an athlete. We just need to see him put it together at the position. He's an athlete. Why are you not running a 40, man? How come you're running a slower 20-yard shuttle than Deshaun White? It's upsetting because the big thing with Braden is how competitive he is, right? How he's like the guy you want to go into battle with. Run a damn 40 for me then. Let me compare you. I think he could be so good in the NFL, but he does himself a disservice by not putting the strengths out there. I think I'm the only one that is this riled up about it.
But again, if it was a strength, then he would have ran it. He's obviously trying to hide his speed because if he truly wanted to do it, he would have gone out there and done it. But to avoid both days for both the combine and pro day, I mean, I think that says more than him actually running it.
Yeah, in a bad way.
Very bad way. Yeah.
Take the chance and run it. Pat, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I think you covered it. You covered it.
That is great to hear. We've already done the hot takes. Matt.
Well, hold on. Sorry, before we move away from OU football, Stoops versus Billy Bowman. Did you guys see that scuffle?
Oh,
yeah.
Doesn't matter.
That's just normal football practice.
That's football practice. It's hot. That's normal.
Yeah, I think so too. But just want to bring it up.
It's actually, you know what? Good teams fight.
Right.
Good teams fight. You need a scuffle or two. Those guys need to know the other side's got it. You got to test your boys.
Yeah. Savvy vet versus incoming freshman. Gotta let him know who's boss.
Nope. Billy Bowman is an incoming junior.
Yeah, Billy Bowman. And that's what I was about to say.
You, Matt.
I thought I'm thinking of Peyton Bowen. That's my bad.
Sorry.
That's on me. That's on
me.
No,
it was Billy Bowman.
Peyton Bowen gets back to practice and Drake Stoops is just like fighting him. No.
Billy Bowman clips, though. Billy Bowman clips. Glad he's back, and he looks like an insane athlete this week.
Dude, he looks like Hercules.
Yeah. I mean, we want to give his condolences for obviously his sister passing. That's got to be really tough to go through. It's good to see him back at practice and getting after it, though. But condolences up for his family on that.
Did you not say Billy Bowman, Patrick?
I said Billy Bowman. Stoops and Billy Bowman got in a scuffle, and I do think it was good that the rookies saw it.
Matt, why are you?
The freshmen saw it.
I know, but like Maggie's.
He made a mistake.
He keeps on saying, like, okay, all right. I'm confused.
All right. Let's circle him.
I thought this was a bit, and it's like, what are we doing, guys? Anyway, let's circle him.
Well, speaking of other programs other than just football, because obviously I can't get Peyton Bowen and Billy Bowman right. So let me get this right for you. Let's circle them wagons. Guys, some pretty big news coming out of the women's side. Let's start with women's gym, who battled back to win their 15th, not 5, 15th regional championship with a score of 198.5, beating Kentucky, Ohio State, and Alabama. They will compete in the national semis starting on the 13th of this April in Dickies Arena in Fort Worth. So possibly might have to get some boots on the ground. They will take on number 4 UCLA, number 5 Utah, and number 9 Kentucky, who also made it through the regionals. So good luck to the women's as they continue to go for another national championship run. OU softball, and I do want to get you guys reactions on this. Not sure if you saw it, but OU softball improving to 33-1, pulling out the brooms against the Lady Longhorns, beating all 3 games. The first game they played was in Oklahoma City Hall of Fame Stadium, where they did break the season record for a single game in that stadium with over 8,300 people attending that game 1 of the series. But man, I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but what a classless response by the Texas head coach. Not sure if you saw it. So last year, he was flipping off the crowd at the World Series. This year, as he's losing to the same team that beat him, calling out Gasso, calling out the team for, let me pull up the quote here from one of his, I forgot which game it was, but I just can't believe this. I want to get your reactions. Post-game interview from Mike White. NIL is a huge part of this game right now. We're behind. OU or Oklahoma is lucky enough to have quite a large fund available. We just can't compete with that. It's a case of the haves and the have-nots. Guys, we're talking about a Texas program that has more than triple the students, 7 times the state population of Texas and Oklahoma. And he's complaining about an NIL being the deciding factor between why Texas can't compete with OU. What are your guys' thoughts? I'm perplexed.
They have just as much money. They have more money than us. And his complaint was they spread it out between more sports, maybe. That's just not an excuse. And also, what a thing to say to your players. Like, oh, I could have gotten better than you, but I didn't have the money to do it. And also, I'm not good enough to coach you up to be as good as them. That's what he said, in my opinion. This guy is soft and classless. And Joe Castiglione would never hire someone like him.
Love that point. We can never speak enough Joe Castiglione praise on this podcast. It felt very Tom Herman to me. Did y'all get that kind of vibe where
oh yeah,
hey, when I lose, it's not my fault. It's this fault, this fault, this fault, this fault, this fault. It's not my fault. Things happen to me. Take your L, man. How are you going to walk into a recruit's room or living room now and sit the parents down in their eyes and be like, yeah, if I had more money, I'd be down the street at that recruit's house, actually. No, sorry. You embarrassed yourself, homie.
Yeah.
Bad stuff out of him. I hope that program goes up in flames.
And Mark, not just a single L. Give them 3 because they got absolutely swept this week. And the biggest one of the games was the second game where actually OU found themselves down 3-1 going into the last inning, bottom of the 7th. Get a runner on with Riley Boone on first. Jada Coleman hits a clutch 2-run homer to tie it up. And then we get bases loaded for a walk-off double by K9 herself, Kinsey Henson, to win it for the Sooners 4-3. And then coming back to third game to run rule them in 6 innings, 10-2. That's just pure dominance. That has nothing to do with NIL. That is just a team that is much better on it talent-wise, works probably way harder. And again, not to give anything bad credit to the Lady Longhorns, but to not take any blame for your 3 losses in a row, that's a tough look. That's a tough look indeed.
It's so not the players' fault that the coach is a loser.
It's not. It is truly not. And that analogy to Tom Herman, honestly, spot on. So good for you for coming up with that one. So OU improves to 33-1, and they will play a 3-game series against Texas Tech in Norman as they continue Big 12 play. OU's women's tennis improving to 15-8, recently beating their first Big 12 opponents, West Virginia and Iowa State, taking care of business. looking to continue their streak against the Lady Cowgirls of OSU this upcoming weekend. Switching over to the men's side, OU's men's gym having a faltering performance in the NPSF championships in Colorado. They got second place, losing to Stanford by a pretty wide margin, but will still compete in the NCAA regionals. And that will also be the same weekend of the semis for women's gym. So that will be April 14th as they continue their streak for another national title as well. OU's men's tennis 11-9 on the season, recently beating UT Arlington, but then falling to 2 straight top 5 teams in TCU and Texas. Very tough look, but 2 teams that are very good in the the men's tennis world. And finally, men's OU and not Texas and TCU. So the Horned Frogs getting a much needed win for men's tennis. They beat the OU men's Sooners 4-0. Last program, OU's men's baseball, which has just been a complete mystery. They've just had these roller coaster of good wins and just also getting absolutely buzzsawed, just like this past weekend. So they're currently 15-14. They played a 4-game series against Stanford. They lost 2 of those, 23-11 and 16-5. Now, Stanford is a top 10 team, so we did win 2 of those games, 2-0 and 6-5. But my gosh, giving up 23 and 16 runs in 2 separate games, and we're talking baseball, that's pretty tough to do against any college baseball team that's put up 10-plus runs. So not a good look for the OU's men's team as they try to continue to find their footing after last season's national runner-up to Ole Miss.
My only point on that is I remember when we were podcasting about OU baseball last year, and we kind of wrote them off, and we didn't talk about OU baseball, like men's baseball, for a good 4 to 5 weeks. And then we ended up in the national championship. Let's give us some time. Let's stay patient. We'll be fine.
For sure. I think that's a good point. Just like softball, they play a ton of games during the season. So it is very, very early on, even though they've played almost 30 games, but there's still a lot of time left. And that's a great point, Patrick. Mark, did you have a point on that as well?
No, I thought that was a great point too. Skip Johnson has been here before. He knows what he's doing. And if the guys can get to that height, I think that we have the right manager in place to get them there.
For sure. And they will play ORU and then have a 3-game series against Ryan Tyson's Baylor Bears upcoming. So hopefully they can get back on track with some Big 12 play. But that is it for the OU WaGanns segment.
Well, you missed one of the most important things that happened this week. Not really, but I don't know if you guys saw. Kelly Clarkson had like a snack bracket and invited different schools to participate. And Oklahoma Sooners won the snack bracket with the onion burger. And for women from the OU women's basketball team, I think they were the ones that proposed the onion burger or so, but they were able to go on the Kelly Clarkson show. Ben Affleck was on it too, and 2 others that I don't remember, Matt Damon and someone else. But yeah, we also killed it in Kelly Clarkson's snack bracket.
Do you know which restaurant supplied the onion burger?
So it was the recipe. It was a women's basketball's uncle's recipe.
Oh, that's sick. It's like a real homemade. That's cool. I bet Kelly loved that.
She loved it a lot. And she loved the burger, obviously.
Behind those hazel eyes were a hungry person loving a burger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess one other thing other than that, OU's men's basketball, Jalen Hill set to transfer, probably was their second best player this year. OU's men now basketball has, I think, 4 or 5 guys in a transfer portal. I think only 2 or 3 of them probably actually matter. This is a pretty big deal for Moser because this is a guy that pretty much was a centerpiece all season long. Maybe not offensively, but really brought the energy, especially on the defensive end. So he was an all Big 12 honorable mention. So that's a big loss as they just continue to reel even in the offseason. So still bad news for OU's mid basketball.
For someone like Porter that wants to build something year over year, it seems like this is 2 years now where we're losing more out of the portal than we seem to be getting back. And it's not looking great, guys.
No, it's not. But he only averaged 10 points a game, so whatever. Let's move on.
Yeah, he wasn't the MVP of his team. But let me tell you, the boys have their own PGP MVP.
Hey, wait, just because we have a few minutes, I wanted to ask you guys because we never talk about it. Matt, what do you want the Packers to do in the draft?
And you killed my segue there.
Yeah,
what do I want the Packers to do?
We can't do my shit after that.
I'm not sure which pick they have in the first round, but
I'm not sure they do.
I think they do.
15. Not bad.
I'll have to see who's listed as they're projected to play. If I had to guess, probably offensive line or defensive line. Probably more defensive line because they still cannot stop the run. So definitely need to fill those gaps, and still a lot of young guys that they drafted last year coming on. So I would hope defensive line, but they could switch and go offensive line. But knowing the Packers organization, it'll be someone that, I don't know, take another cornerback or safety, unfortunately.
If Jalen Carter starts to fall, you want them to stop that fall?
I think they're too conservative to take a player like Jalen Carter in his situation. So I don't even think that would be on his radar. So
that's a good point. And there's not an owner. So there's no one to like end up answering to. You just can't make decisions like that.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Patrick?
You go ahead. Let me think about it.
Still a big price young guy? Okay. Yeah, guys, I hate it. I'm falling more and more into the Bijan Robinson idea.
Yeah.
I actually so here's the consideration, right? Is Arthur Smith is a super creative offensive play caller as it stands. Cordero Patterson spent more time at receiver last year than he did running back. You can almost see Bijan Robinson sort of filling in a role where Patterson is only now playing receiver, or kind of the Gavin Freeman of the Falcons there, where it's sort of your gadget player, lines up everywhere. Between Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, you've got a more than formidable running game. You've got a more than formidable passing game out of the backfield. And you've still got your Drake London, your Kyle Pitts, and your hopefully Marvin Mims in like round 3, round 4 to round out that offense. And then if Desmond Ritter's not the guy, you know it. You know it right away, because that's at least enough skill position players that a good quarterback would be able to show success. Now, here's where I've also sort of started wavering is Christian Gonzalez. If you go to the Relative Athletic Score website, I don't know what it's called. It's just RAS. Google RAS NFL Draft, RAS. And Christian Gonzalez, when compared to the athletic profile of every cornerback that has ever come to the draft, is like a 9.99. He's in the top percentile of people. So that's intriguing too. But I just keep coming back to, if you can get a top tier talent, you should go ahead and do that if your offense is just going to run the ball 30 times a game anyway. And that's what the Falcons do. You know, it's play action passes off of running the ball 3 times in a row to tight ends not named Kyle Pitts. All right, Pat.
Okay,
did I stall for long enough for you, man?
This is what I want.
Mhm.
Okay. If the Texans can get CJ, let's get CJ. If they don't get CJ, let's have a deal ready to go with the Ravens to give them our second and our 9th or
12th.
whatever. 12th.
It would be 2 and 12. I wouldn't give them those two. No way. No way, Jose.
For MVP, incredible top 5 quarterback in the league, Lamar Jackson. I don't want to get a rookie in here, and then I don't have a lot of faith that CJ and Bryce Young are going to have like a longevity in this league, especially with their build. Like Bryce could get hurt game 2, easy. What, read Davis Mills shots back on? You kidding me? I mean, yeah, Lamar could get hurt too, but at least we've got a guy who can progress us and get us to the playoffs and maybe even have a playoff win. Like in 3 years from now, we could be a good team if Lamar Jackson's our quarterback. I don't know if that's the case with the other two.
See, the problem is Lamar needs to go to a team that's ready to be good right now, because in 3 years, Lamar Jackson is not Lamar right now. That's And the Texans have already shown they're going the opposite way, getting rid of Brandon Cooks the way that they did, right? Even if they draft a quarterback, they're going to have to take a receiver at some point also. Someone they're mocked pretty commonly is Jackson Smith and Jigba, the Ohio State receiver who, I mean, rocketed up the draft boards after not playing last season. But that seems kind of likely at this point is they go quarterback and then a receiver that's able to get open all the time just to be a safety valve.
Yeah, I mean,
you have to go quarterback. You're going CJ?
I'm actually pretty even on them both, but yeah, I guess I'd lean CJ just because of like after season hype of CJ. But I have a lot of faith in Bryce Young to be a very good, like he's just a smooth operator to me. He just makes things happen.
What if they trade back and they get Anthony Richardson? How do you feel about that?
I would love that, especially if we got like another pick for it or something.
What if they take Anthony Richardson at 2? How do you feel about that?
I would run into a wall.
I think it's more likely you take him at 2 than that you trade back and get him.
Yeah. I agree. But yeah. I can see us doing that. Here's the thing I'm happy with, though, is we're most likely going to get 2 offensive guys in the first round. We typically don't do that. And that would be exciting.
Friend of the pod, Scuba Duba Tau, Ryan Heil, wants them to take Will Anderson, the linebacker out of Alabama.
Yeah, I do. I would love that. I would love that.
More of a sure thing.
I'm always cool with picking up a good quarterback who's a second string somewhere right now, like a Baker Mayfield. I would have loved that. And picking Will Anderson, that's a better package to me than a CJ Stroud.
It also keeps you bad enough that you're still in the Caleb game for next year.
Which,
like, you're not going to win anything with, you know.
Yeah, all good points. And hopefully your guys' team or any NFL team will find their MVP in the draft. But speaking of MVPs, PGP MVPs, it's time for it. Patrick, who is your MVP?
I'm gonna go with Caitlin Clark, Iowa women's basketball player, breaking records this March Madness. I think she had 2 games over 40 points, over 180 points throughout the tournament. Just insane. Stephen A. Smith said it, and I hate it, but she's like the Steph Curry of women's basketball right now, just the way she shoots. So
I hate that we're still doing that. Steph Curry did his shit a decade ago.
That's true. Oh, also, I think women they had 9.9 million viewers, which
broke
is
every
an insane amount. Broke every record. Yeah. Awesome.
It was a better game. It was
so fun to watch, and the taunting
was a better game.
The taunting was awesome. I loved it.
Taunting's good. Just let them taunt.
Let them taunt.
I mean, like, that's like, if guys can talk shit in games, why can't the women talk shit in games?
For sure. Taunt it up.
That's right. Mark, your MVP.
Yeah. My MVP, program guy Mason Prince. It was such a great time just celebrating Mason last week and spending time with his friends and family. Just one of the best weddings I've ever been to. Honored to be a part of it, and MVP Mason Prince. Hope he is having a great time doing undisclosed things with his wife in an undisclosed location.
That's a good MVP, and I will round it out. I'm going to give it to the Thunder organization for what they did for Monty Williams when he came, him and the Phoenix Suns. So if you guys don't know, Monty Williams used to be an assistant coach at the Thunder years back. Tragically lost his wife while he was coaching the Thunder. And what the Thunder did for this game was the seats that they typically reserve for his wife and the family. They did not allow anyone to sit in those seats to honor Monty Williams and his former wife, or his late wife. So just a class act that the Thunder organization continues to do. Even former players, Kevin Durant, all these guys who have been through the Thunder organization, they can't say enough of how well run it is. And again, just a class act for what they did for Monty Williams and what had happened in the past. So gotta give up for the Thunder, and potentially playing for a 10th play-in spot. That would be huge for the Thunder organization, but just a class act all around. So that wraps up the PG.
Well, no,
MVPs.
hold on. Let me comment on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
also,
Matt is just in such a rush.
he's ready to wrap it up. You got
to-
plans with
to
your
wrap
TCU girlfriend
everything
tonight?
up. You know he's got a trip to Fort Worth in his evening, and Matt, it's okay to let us breathe a little bit, baby.
Patrick, breathe for me, baby.
I also thought it was awesome that KD got booed a lot in OKC. I hope that continues. KD is a
Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant, absolute
I'm thinking about
cupcake.
the wedding.
No, not KD. Yeah, KD got booed. No, Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant got booed. And I hope that every single time he enters that arena, he continues to get booed. I know there's probably a lot of Kevin Durant fans here, listeners, but anti that. He left OKC and we shouldn't like him.
I don't know, man. Do you think? I feel like
I think it'd probably be
crossover is
mixed.
not. I don't know. He's a Texas guy.
That's true. I don't know. He also did a lot for OKC, so I can see a couple
And then
fans
left devastatingly. Matt, where do you land on Kevin Durant?
Yeah, where do you land?
I'm mixed. I know the fans were also mixed. I know they gave pretty good ovation for Chris Paul, who obviously played there for a couple of seasons. I feel like it's water under the bridge at this point. I mean, I was obviously a Kevin Durant for a very long time when I was growing up with the Thunder organization at the very beginning. So he gave me so many great memories, so many good playoff runs. It obviously sucks the way he left, but I mean, I see why the reason he did it, to go win championships with Golden State, when obviously he couldn't do that for the Thunder. So I'm happy for him. I hate he's playing for, now 4 teams in the past, 3 or 4 years at this point, but he's had a pretty crazy journey himself.
Really has sort of been like turned into a mercenary. Like,
Yeah.
Just like Russell Westbrook, too. Like 2 of the biggest Thunder franchise stars have now played each for like 3 or 4 different teams in the past 6 seasons, which is crazy to think about.
yeah, and it's such that Russ particularly has turned into like a hot potato kind of game the last 3 or 4 years. I'm not the biggest Russell Westbrook fan that any of you have ever met in your life, but like all he does is try hard. All he does is try harder than everyone else on the court all the time. And it's not his fault that he got his money. That's a good thing. But definitely led to some turbulent rides along the way for him. Anyway, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up. What do you say?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Please like and subscribe to the program, guys.
I forgot to say that earlier.
It's okay.
Like and subscribe, guys, on YouTube, on Facebook. Go to your podcast subscriber of choice and subscribe. And more than that, please, if you're on Apple Pods, if you're on Spotify, review the podcast. Give us 5 stars on the podcast. Share it with a friend. There's a Facebook page, Program Guys Podcast with a Z. Follow us on Twitter, @Program Guys. Follow us on Instagram, @Program Guys, both with a Z. We're everywhere. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 65. We are honored to have you. We miss you, Mason. We miss you, Ryan. Patrick, take us out.
Keep pushing it, baby.